Alright guys, I wanted to make a quick video and go over some of the features of this document. So this is a canine unit tracking document or Excel template, and what this does is it allows us to track our utilizations as a canine officer, the things we do on a day-to-day basis, from the traffic stops we make to the arrests that we make, the things we do specific to the canine unit, so tracking the narcotics utilizations or patrol utilizations and the outcome of those utilizations, and also any seizures that we make as a canine unit for the narcotics or the money that we seize. So basically I've learned over the years that all of this information in this document was relevant to the administration. How many traffic stops we made in a day, or what the racial breakup of those traffic stops were, how many seizures we've had for drugs or street value and narcotics. And so over the years I developed this document to kind of track all of that in one central location and help ease the burden of keeping records for us. So I'm going to talk about the layout of this really quick. This is the main page or main tab right here. It says the data entry tab. This is where we'll enter all of our information. This just keeps a tab that we could keep up in our vehicle or on our desktop all day long and just enter the data as we went along. And this is just for the entry of the data. So the next tab that I'm going to talk about, I'm going to skip these two. I'm going to go over here to this these red tabs here. Now this is being displayed, or this is recording on a Mac. This will look just slightly different on a Windows machine, but I've tested it on both and all the functionality works. So these red tabs over here are our databases for the different categories that we are tracking. So this first area is to track all of our traffic stops or pedestrian contacts. This next area right here tracks our seizures, both for the narcotics and any currency or other real property seized, vehicles, guns. And the next one is the canine utilizations. And this little area right here tracks our utilizations, or enters our utilizations. A canine training database. And this allows us to track, this is not our training notes. This is simply a tracking that will track how many minutes or how much time we have spent training, and also will track our proficiency sniffs and the false responses so that it can give us an accuracy percentage. And the next area is for canine demos. We also track the amount of canine public demos or public appearances we do. So how many people were present at those and who requested it and things like that. And then the next one is for the officer's daily activity. So this area right here are the things that we would track every day for the canine officer or canine team, the things that they had done over that day. So real quick, these tabs or the databases is where our information is stored. So when we click on those, you'll see in the Excel template everything matches the categories, and this is where our data goes once we enter it. Okay, so I'm going to breeze through these really quick and I will come back to them, but I just want to give you a quick look at how these are laid out. We won't have to spend, or you won't have to spend a lot of time in these tabs. This is just the area where our data is going to keep it organized for us. The only time you really have to get back into these is if you need to check and see if you've made an entry, or if you need to edit an entry that you have made previously. You'll be able to reference it back. So I have some information in here which is just from one of our canine units up to this point so far in the year, and I just had to have some data in there so I could display for you guys how this works. Now I'm going to go back to the canine unit dashboard, this second tab here. And this is a statistical page. It keeps everything for us, or it calculates everything for us. And these are all the categories that match our entry. So the officer daily activity, this would track our training minutes, our utilizations of the dog, our seizures, the weight of our seizures, and the street value of our seizures. So this is all in one location. If you see here, this will be January through December, and if this particular chart we're looking at is 2017, if we had information in here for 2016, we could go up to this year where it says select year for report, and we could select 2016, and that would display our totals right here. But since we don't have any information, I'm going to go back to 2017, and it calculates everything for the year 2017. Now, this column right here, this 2017 yearly total, this is going to be our yearly total. And this end column will not change when we change the year. This is going to be the current running career total for the dog from the time we started using this document. So we have a quick look at any one time of how much we have been responsible for since we've been paired with the particular dog, of seizures and how many hours we've worked and all that kind of stuff. So up here at the top, I've already talked about the selection of the year. If we will set the date that we came in service with our dog, so in this particular case it was March 16th of 17, and this will keep a total for us. It'll calculate how many years we've been in service, the running time in service, so we can kind of get an idea of the seizures versus the amount of time and the return on the investment of the dog. So we have a couple of buttons up here, and if I just want to do a quick look at my career only total, this button right here will hide all of my other columns, and I can print this out or just kind of have a look at what the career seizures are. And then to show all, I just press the show all button. Now, these three boxes right here, the year, the date in service, and the date out of service, are the only three things on this page that you can edit. You can't edit anything else. These are auto-calculating forms. So the next page will be a traffic stop analysis, and I don't have very much information in here under the traffic stop, but this would same layout of the form, January through December. You select the year for the report, and a career total would be down here. This would show how many of our stops were for a moving violation or an ordinance or whatever else. The disposition of the stops, how many traffic stops resulted in arrests or citations or warnings, no action. This would be the area for the search analysis. So if we search a car, we can code it as there was no search conducted. There was a probable cause search, a consent search, administrative search based off of a search warrant or some other exception to the warrant requirement. This tracks our demographics for the traffic stop. So how many drivers, in what demographic they fit into in race and sex. And then this area down at the bottom is a search analysis by demographic. So it basically gives us the count of no searches that took place. So as an example, if I had stopped 100 whites and no search took place on 90 of those, then I would know that I searched some type of search, one of these categories, for 10 of those. So it gives us an idea of your percentages and everything that you can keep up with to combat the defense claims and things like that they might bring at you. So this works the same way as the other one. We can show career total only, or we can show all the data for the year that we select. Okay, so now I want to talk about entering that data a little bit. So I want to go back to my data entry tab, and so basically I would have this up in my car. When I got back in the car from a traffic stop, I would select the date. Today's date's 11/24. I would put the location in here. So just type in the location of your stop. The type of contact was a traffic stop. What type of probable cause I had. It gives me a drop down box. I can select these options. And let's say this was for speeding and I wanted to track that. And give me some drop down boxes. A white male. And there was a warning given. And no search. So once I enter this information, all I do to add this to my database is click Add Stop. Now it'll reset this form, and let's have a look really quick at our traffic stop database, and it'll be the top one. So this is my most recent entry, will be at the top right here. It shows me the location and all of the information that I had just entered. Okay. Now very quickly, I can go back, I can click back here to my data entry. If I wanted to look at my database for traffic stops, I can click this button right here, and it'll take me into my database, and then I can click the button in the upper left corner. That'll take me back to my main page, so I don't even have to worry about the tabs along the bottom. These are my quick access for all of these areas. Okay, so everything works the same. Every area works the same. With the button underneath it to add to the database, it only adds that area, so it doesn't clear the whole form, just the area you're working on. If we had a seizure to enter, we would go in here and type in our seizure information and add it. Now, a note on this, you'll notice our drug types are listed with the G for grams. So we have to have everything into grams in order to be able to calculate street value. Everything has to be entered into the same weight. So I've also have a handy convenience conversion calculator over here. And basically, let's say that I had 5 pounds of marijuana and I needed to know how many grams that was. I could come over here in the calculator area, type in 5 pounds, and it would give me my total here for the amount of grams that I would need to enter into my seizure for grams. So this little calculator will calculate, it'll calculate kilos, pounds, or ounces for us into the grams and give us the total that we can put in. It's handy to have that in one spot. So as we go down through here, what we currently have in here is marijuana wax, marijuana, powder cocaine, crack cocaine, powder meth, ice or crystal meth, heroin, LSD hits, ecstasy, pharmaceuticals, and miscellaneous narcotics. So the way that we do this is these are the most popular things that we are seizing in our jurisdiction. And so for pharmaceuticals, your prescription pills, we don't break them up into every single possible prescription pill we can get. We lump them all into one category, and say I had 20 pills or 20 Xanax bars, I would put 20 eaches into here. And then my miscellaneous narcotics is DU, stands for dosage units. So maybe I have a syringe with something and it has 5 dosage units in, then I'm going to put 5 in there. Or any other drug that we seize that doesn't fit into the above category. So maybe mushrooms or something like that we could put in there and still keep up with seizures and the values for those. So other property value seized is if it's an asset forfeiture perhaps, and you've seized money counting machines or computers or things like that, and that's a value that is going to benefit your canine unit to be able to track how much you've been responsible for seizing. U.S. currency that you seize, any vehicles, guns, and this is a little place you just type in some notes to kind of jog your memory, or if there's anything relevant, you just type in your notes into there, and you would add that to the database. Okay, now, street value of these. Every time we enter this, it's got to calculate a street value for us. So if I had 100 grams of marijuana, it's going to look over here to this chart, and this is where I set my street value. So in your jurisdiction, if your values are different, you would set your street values for these items right here, and that's how it calculates. So if I had 100 grams of marijuana, it would add 100 grams to the weight in the database, and then it would multiply 100 grams times $15 a gram to come up with the street value seizure. So what that means is you can leave it set, or if your street values change, you can change it per seizure or as they change. It doesn't change your history of the things you've already seized. It just changes it for what you've already entered. Okay. Now, the utilizations, I'm going to go into the utilization section. We have the date of the utilization, the case number associated with that, who requested it. So we track whether it is a self-initiated utilization, if it was requested by our own department, by our sheriff's department, by a federal entity, or by an outside agency. And so these are just something that we kind of keep up with, who is using our dog and how much we are helping other agencies. So this category utilization, goes into the type of category that we're using our dog for. So it's going to come into two different categories. It's going to be detection or patrol. Now, if I choose detection, then under my type of utilizations, it's going to give me a list of things I could have used a detection dog in, or areas. So it could be a vehicle, a building, a package or a parcel, luggage, a school search, an open area search, or an other, which just doesn't fit into one of those categories. But if I chose patrol, my type of utilizations are going to show my patrol option. So it might be a tracking, a building search, an area search, an evidence search, a perimeter search, or other patrol function that doesn't fit into one of those. Now, the number of utilization, it's going to be default set to 1, but you could potentially enter multiple utilizations altogether if they all had the same disposition. So, for example, if I went and I was going to enter I went to a parking lot and I did 10 vehicle sniffs, and all of those vehicle sniffs were no alert. I could go in here and I could put 10 vehicle sniffs, detection vehicle, 10 of them. It is not a apprehension, so I'll leave that as NA. And then my utilization disposition, I would put no alert. And that would show in there, and it would calculate in there at 10 vehicle searches with no alert. Since we'll change that back to NA, these are going to be defaulted to NA because it doesn't know if they apply or not until you get in here and enter them. And as you do, you'll just go down and select the drop down of what it is. So if it happens to be a patrol and we're doing a tracking for a suspect, or let's keep it with tracking. We're doing tracking for a suspect and we find the guy and he gives up without a utilization or without a bite, then it would be an apprehension with no bite. And if we deployed the dog and the dog bit the suspect, it would be an apprehension with a bite. So this is important because this allows us to track the percentage of bites, or our apprehension ratio, as the courts would refer to be able to show that the dog's not misbehaving and our handler's not misbehaving, and the apprehension ratios are low, or where they are supposed to be. Okay. Now, utilization notes, a quick place where we can type in notes or anything that goes along with that we just want to remind ourselves of. Once we enter that in there, we're going to hit add utilizations to database. It'll clear that form and add it into the database for canine utilization. So what I just entered was right here, today's date, and the patrol tracking 10 utilizations, and it would enter all of that information right through there. Okay. Now, the next area is going to be our training info. Put the date, the training. We break this down. We do obedience. We do a lot of obedience training just on our own, maybe every day while we're at work, or just a 10-minute obedience session throughout the day. So we keep up with how many minutes we spend on obedience. Other training minutes is maybe if we did tracking on our own while we were at work. And these are basically, these two categories right here, the obedience and other, are basically the training that we conduct with our dog that is not part of our canine unit training, which is above and beyond our 16-hour-a-month allotted time at the police department to stay within industry standards. So these are calculated in minutes. Now, for our canine unit training, we train 4 hours a week. So that would be 16 hours a month, or some months 20 hours. So if today I spent 4 hours of training, I would put in 4 hours there. And if it was the unit training, and it's going to allow us to track how many hours we spend in training. Proficiency sniffs. Now, the number of proficiency sniffs and the way this is calculated is, let's say that I did 100 proficiency sniffs. I went out and searched 100 vehicles, and my dog gave me a false response on one of those vehicles. So that would mean he was correct 99 out of 100 times, or he would be 99% accurate, or have a 1% error rate. So this number of proficiency sniffs is the number of items we actually search. 100 pieces of luggage, 100 cars, 100 boxes, whatever. It's the actual amount of items, not just the day. Okay. The category would be, if I want to put in here that this was in fact vehicles, I could just type in vehicles. It would be 100 vehicles or luggage or whatever. Just allows me to kind of keep up with that through my training, and I would add it to the training database by clicking the button there. Okay, public demo, same way. We track the date of the demo, the number of people in attendance, and then the name of the group or the people who requested us. So if I did a demo for 100 people, say over the course of the career of the dog, 7-8 years later, we can say we've done public demos for 5,000 people. All right, now this last area is for our officer daily activity. So what I found was we constantly had to be justifying what we were doing and or with our time if we weren't assigned to shifts, or to show that canine handlers were still contributing. So these are the areas that we would track, and these areas are, we put in here how many hours we actually work, any accident reports we took, incident reports that we wrote, any calls we went to that didn't result in an incident report, any other assists. So maybe if I backed up another officer, then that would be another assist. Or if I went to a call with another officer and it was their call, then it would be an assist. Citations issued for the day, warnings issued for the day, any felony. Now we tracked felony and misdemeanor arrest in 2 categories, one for drugs and one for other, and that's just because our job was to find drugs. So we like to be able to say how many or what percentage of our arrests came from drug or drug related charges versus warrant arrests or other things we might run across. Another category we would track was DWI arrest, broken down into alcohol or drugs. Now, these particular categories through here, there is a way for you to change those if you don't like those, if you wanted to track something else. And let's just say you decided you didn't want to track DWIs, and instead you wanted to look at how many domestic battery charges that you arrested. So what we would do is we would go into our officer daily database, and the category for the DWI alcohol arrest, we're going to change it to whatever we want to track. So I've color coded these so you'll know that you can change these. So if we were going to track our domestics, say domestic battery and domestic assault. So if I change those two to domestic battery and domestic assault, when I go back here to my data entry form, it's going to have changed here with the new things I want to track. So if you set these up at the very beginning, when you begin to use this form, you'll be able to kind of custom choose if there's some specific things that you want to track that's not included in this form, or some things that we do track that you don't want to track. You'll be able to play with that a little bit and kind of set those up. Now what you won't want to do is 6 months later, after you've tracked DWIs, go back in and change it to domestic batteries, because then your numbers aren't going to match. You're going to be calculating the different you're going to be adding them basically together. So you want to try to set this up at the beginning, or be sure you delete all the old information if you change anything. So when it comes to the drugs are set up the same way. So we track marijuana wax because it's got real popular, and marijuana by the gram. So let's say that you wanted to split this up. You didn't have a use for marijuana wax, but you wanted it to track nice high quality or prescription grade marijuana. So if we go into our canine seizure database, and I go up here to marijuana wax, and I'm going to change that to prescription marijuana. Okay, now when I change it here, I'm going to go back into my data entry form, and it's going to display the new value there that I want to track. It's going to show prescription marijuana, and it's going to let me set my value here, my street value here for that particular drug. So it's important on the beginning of using this form that you set this up how you want it. If there's a couple things in these categories that you want to change. So as you look at the seizure database, now if I were to change that to prescription marijuana for the weight, I'm going to want to go down here to where it says marijuana wax for the dollar sign or street value, and I'm going to want to change it here also so it matches in my reports. So I'm going to change marijuana, prescription marijuana there, and prescription marijuana here. Okay. And that way, in my forms, in my reports, when I look at my dashboard here, where it's going to show all of my values, my value is going to change here to show that I'm calculating the prescription marijuana value and not just the, if I didn't change it in both places, it would still show the marijuana wax. Okay. So the only areas that you can edit, or the only areas you should edit on this, are what I've color coded here to show where you could put in whatever particular drugs you wanted. So you're going to change it here for the weight, here for the corresponding column for the street value or dollar amount, and it'll change it for you on the data entry form and in your reports. Okay, so it gets a little more complex. Most people just use it how it's set up, but I have had some requests for people who want to track drugs differently or want to set it up just a little different. So I've built that into it so you can custom set whichever seizure you want or whichever drugs you want to track for your weight and your street value, and then some other officer activity stuff so that you can set up. Okay, so now we've gone over the forms that you can look at, and you could simply print this out and turn it into your supervisors if they needed the reports every week. You can copy and paste it. You could transfer it to another form, whatever, but it's all calculated for you in one location, and all you have to do is go through that data entry tab to put it in there. Okay, so now let's say that we need to make an edit. We need to change information, or I'm not sure if I entered a traffic stop or not. I can go into my traffic stop database, and I can look here, and right at the top it should show me the latest entry I've made. So it's default sorted to be the newest to the oldest. Right at the top should be what I've entered. Let's say I made a mistake and I need to change that location to Highway 25 instead of Highway 65. Then I could just go in there and make my change inside my chart or inside my table here, change the value, and then save the file, and everything's good to go. Now, the other way I could do that is, let's say I've made a mistake and I'm just going to delete it and start over. I want to select the whole row. So right over here, left side, select the whole row, right click it, and delete. And it'll take that whole row out for me. And then I can go just back into the data entry and add it again. So I have two options for that. I can go into the corresponding database for my information. I can select the whole row and delete it, or I can just go in and make a change to the record itself that's stored inside that database or that table. Okay. Now, I'll talk real quick about this options list tab. You shouldn't really have any need to get into here, but it is locked. If you right click on it, you can unprotect the tab, and that just will allow you to add another category. So if you had a patrol utilization that you wanted to add so that it would start tracking it, we could unlock it and add that into our list. This is the page that the data entry is pulling from to get the options. So for my category of utilization, it looks here and it says detection and patrol, but it's getting that information from my options list for detection and patrol. So if there's something else I wanted it to track, I could go in here, unlock the tab, and add in public PR work or whatever, just any other category I wanted to track. So it's set up to track the most important things. The least amount of changes that you do in here, the better. But it does have that possibility if you're going to play around with it and unlock things and add some more categories. Then I suggest you make a backup copy before you do that, and try not to mess with anything. Don't change any of these. because they are being counted into some of these reports to show your apprehension for bites and no bites and whatnot. So just don't want to make any changes if you don't have to. Otherwise, it should be set up good to go for you. We've got one of our guys keeps this up in his car. He keeps the file on a thumb drive, or he can access it on the network. He goes in here, and let's say as he makes a traffic stop and writes a citation, he just puts a 1 there. And as the day goes on, he might go in and change that to 5. And at the end of the day, he stored all his numbers there, and all he has to do is add it to the database, and it drops it in there for him for the daily entry. And so that's a way for him to kind of keep up with it as he's going as well. So these things, you can always look back for, let's say he forgot how many citations he issued. He could go into his traffic stop database and figure up the number of citations that he wrote for the day to enter into that page as well. So this is just a nice, clean kind of document to allow you to track everything. The 6 different databases, 6 different areas. You can get into the databases and edit your records and sort them and organize them and print them if you wanted to anyway. But most of our reports are going to come from right here. And if you have any questions, please feel free to shoot me a text message at, if you have my cell, if not, it's 501-450-0810, or shoot me an email at clay.smith255@yahoo.com. Now, when you first open this document, you're going to need to enable macros. This is a macro-enabled document, which means it runs its own recordings and programs on the inside of it. So you might get the screen with a security warning on it that says macros have been disabled. You need to enable the content. So when you open this up, be sure and enable the content of that, and that way it'll all be good to go for you. If you do order this on my page, then as soon as you order, you'll be able to go here and it'll give a download link where you can download it, and it will also send you an email with the link to be able to download the file. If you have any suggestions for this form, please let me know. Shoot me an email, and I hope you find it useful.